Welcome to your Mundo Reggae radio show, Sir Billy McLean.
Oh, I like the sir.
That is just
That's the first.
yeah, that's the first. That's just to show you the respect that I have for you, for your music, and all Mexico has the same respect for you in your music.
Thank you so much, and thank you for making the connection. Apologies for the delay, but nothing happens before the time, so thank you for making it happen today.
Thank you for taking the time. I know interviews is not always your choice to get to the audience. So I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you making the time.
No worries at all. That's fine, no problem at all. I'm getting old now, so I'm not too hard now as I get older.
It's a pleasure to talk to you for this season anniversary of the Mundo Reggae Show, a project that is committed to, thank you. We're turning 15 years doing this, sharing all styles and formats of reggae music. And Billy McLean's music has been always part of the selections, which makes me even more proud to finally be talking to you.
Oh wow, that's excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are you ready to talk about your story on music?
Yes, I think so.
Well, I'm 100% sure that the audience all around the world is ready and excited to hear from the man himself the history of your music contributions, highlight and high quality music that you've been presenting to us. Let's start talking about your real history of your love for doing this and discovering your talent. I know for a fact that you were familiar with sound system scene and format from a very young age.
That's correct. I grew up in a house where the sound system was stored. So my father and two of his friends had built a sound system before I was born. Actually, I was born in 1972. So by the time I was born, and around the age of 2-3, I was kind of like recognizing the big speakers, the amplifiers, the turntable, and the sounds that were being played in the house. So artists such as Jackie Edwards, John Holt, Alton Ellis, Delroy Wilson, and the list goes on. There's so much music around that time I was growing up listening to and hearing as a young child. So the sound system was really the focal point, unlike nowadays where children have the TV and computer games. In my time, it was the sound system that myself and my older brothers and sisters grew up listening to. My dad sorting out his records before he would go out and play that Friday night or Saturday night. So yes, the sound system was the first impression of music, and hearing music played on a sound system is always different from hearing it played on a hi-fi, or in this day and age having your earphones in your ears, your earpods or headphones. Hearing music played on a sound system is a total different experience. So growing up listening to music played on a sound system has left an everlasting imprint mentally and physically to me as a young child growing up, listening to ska, rocksteady and reggae music.
What was the name of the sound system in your house?
The sound was named CWS, Chelmsley Wood Sound, and that was the place where we lived. That was our district, our area where we lived. Chelmsley Wood was the name of the sound, CWS sound system. And it wasn't a big sound, like a sound clashing type of sound system. This was more a party type sound system that would play in the local area. There were many Jamaicans and people of Caribbean heritage that lived in our area, and my father would plan his dance and his events, and everyone within the area would come and support my father's dances and events. Places like Auckland Hall was a regular place where my dad would play, Handsworth, West Bromwich, so mainly house parties is what my father would play. But the great thing about my father's sound was the selection of music that he would play, which was kind of exclusive, because in those days, sound systems that were purchasing their music, you had to have exclusive and good music to play for your audience. So my father was a good collector of exclusive music at that time. Lots of white label Jamaican presses and records and productions.
A true collector, a true sound man. Big up to your father for
Yeah.
giving you this culture.
Thank you.
Was your parents Jamaicans, or how
Yes.
they got involved into this
Yes.
culture?
My dad is from Jamaica. Mum and dad are from Jamaica. My dad was raised in Montego Bay. My mum was raised in Negril, Green Island specifically, and my dad left for England very early in the 60s and settled in Sheffield, which is north of England. My mum followed a bit later, and then they both settled in Birmingham, England, which is they call it the second city of England. Birmingham had a very high number of people that migrated from the Caribbean, Jamaica in particular, more than London. People think that London is the capital city, so lots of people from Jamaica settled in London, but the Midlands had the highest number of people that settled from Jamaica and the Caribbean to England. And so many people brought their records with them. My father would be one of those people that came to England with his records in his suitcase. Those days it would be the 78s. I'm not sure if you know what 78 records look like. They're like a 10-inch size record, and they spin at 78, not 45 or 33, but 78 revolutions per minute. So my dad came to England with his early records, which would have been R&B, and people like Johnny Ace, Fats Domino, Wynonie Harris were some of the classic artists at that time. It wasn't even ska when my dad left Jamaica. They were listening and dancing to the sound of American R&B music.
Right. So you were born and raised in the second city of England then?
Yes, that's right, in a place called Chelmsford, yes, in Birmingham. Yes,
Birmingham.
That's where I was born and raised. Yes.
Born and raised playing to being a sound man from a little age. What else would you play to? Was music always your game to play, your time to spend?
Always music. Always. I can't remember any other, what would be the word? Any other ambition, if that makes sense. Music was always something that I focused on, even at a young age of maybe like 7 or 8. When I used to get my pocket money, I would buy a drawing book from the local store, and I'd come back and I'd draw my sound system, my speakers, and my amplifiers, and my turntable. So music was always there, always. More the technical side. I was always inspired by the technical side of how things worked. So the speakers and connecting the sound system together. My father's sound was 2 turntables, a mixer, 3 valve amplifiers, like the tube amplifiers, and then the bass speaker, the mid-range, and the tweeter. So from a young age, I was always kind of like, always wondered how all this equipment works, So I kind of taught myself, and you kind of visualize how it works until I finally got the chance to repair a tweeter. I don't know if you know a tweeter,
yes.
The high frequency. So at a young age, one of my father's tweeters had not stopped working. So I took it apart and I repaired the voice coil, put it back together, and it was working again. So from a young age, I was kind of teaching myself the technical side of music and learning how to repair as well. So that would have been like younger than 10, the age of 10, I was doing that. So music was always something that I aspired to learn, but more from a technical side, not necessarily as a musician or as a singer.
So young, from the age of 10, you were already repairing the tweeter. So
Yeah.
when that part of touching the mic, touching the turntables came, it was before, it was after, how it was? How do you remember the first time that you actually play a record or pass from drawing the sound?
Yeah, we used to mess around. It was really messing around, because when my mum and dad would go to work, my older brothers would plug in the sound and plug in a couple of speakers, and they'd plug in the microphone, and we would be messing around with the sound system. We couldn't do that while my dad was at home. So they would plug it up together, and we'd be listening to sounds like John Holt. There was an album called Love I Can Feel. It's a Studio One album, and the English imprint of that particular record, on the left channel is the vocals, and on the right channel is the music. So we could play that record and listen to the clean instrumental of that particular album, and we could practice on rhythms like Love I Can Feel, Stranger in Love, My Heart Has Gone. So we would be listening to the instrumental of certain Jamaican productions and just messing around, you know. I wouldn't even say it's serious. Those days you probably had DJs like oh gosh, that would have been like the late 70s, early 80s, Ranking Trevor, Daddy U-Roy, Big Youth. They were influenced in terms of DJs, and obviously, like I say, the classic singers like Delroy Wilson, John Holt, Alton Ellis, you know, Ken Booth. They would have been the singers and the songs that we would have been practicing. I wouldn't say I was a songwriter at that time. It was just really messing around. But I remember one particular time, maybe in 1980, maybe 1980, 81, where I was singing on the microphone, and it just came from nowhere. And I remember my brother saying, "Do that again."
Was that an original lyrics? It was you covering? What was it?
No, I was singing an Alton Ellis song called, oh gosh, it will come back in a minute, Since I Fell For You.
Okay.
It's a Prince Buster production, but I was singing the lead vocal of Alton Ellis, Since I Fell For You, and I distinctly remember my brother saying, he couldn't believe what was coming out of this young 9-10-year-old's mouth. Do that again. Done it again. It was like that was the first time that we heard the sound of what we know as Bitty McLean.
Well, not much years after that, the first releases of Bitty McLean came a little bit after 10 years after that you're telling us. So you were pretty young when you started, if I'm not mistaken. To let you know, was your first release in 1993?
And I was 21 at that time, 21.
Right.
So during that time, from practicing on the sound to actually recording my first record, I was singing on local sound systems in the Birmingham area. Every year we would have festival or carnival, and the Birmingham Carnival would really be based around sound systems in Handsworth Park. Handsworth was the area where the carnival would be kept. And you would have about 12, 16 sound systems all stringed up in the park, and we would walk around to the various sound systems and see if we could hold a microphone and create a vibe. And on one particular carnival, a local sound, one of Birmingham's big sounds called Wasifa, agreed to pass me the microphone, and there was no looking back from that. You know, the crowd reaction, hearing my little voice at the age of 10, 11, created a little storm. And from there, most years we'd go back to carnival and festival, and people would be asking, "Who's that singer? Billy the Kid? Who's that singer?" They didn't know my name was Bitty, so they would say, "Billy the Kid, we want to hear Billy the Kid." So various years coming up, the carnival would be a place to exhibit the talents of holding a microphone alongside some of the great DJs in the Birmingham area, people like Maccabee, Pato Banton, Rubber T. There was so many DJs and singers in that era, in the 80s, coming up. You know, to be a DJ or a singer, and most people would be aligned to a sound system in those times. You know, most of the young teenagers would have older brothers or friends that owned a sound system. It was like a transition from my father's days. It was now the older brothers and people like that were now starting sound systems. And most people I knew were aligned to a sound system.
The young Billy the Kid. Was Billy the Kid writing his lyrics already? Was all about DJing and freestyling?
No, just freestyling, and we'd have like some favourite songs that we knew from my dad's catalogue. And no, I mean, songwriting for me began really late in my career. I mean, even with the release of my first album, I think there was only original songs on my first album, so I can't really say I was a competent songwriter, even at my age of 21 when I first released my first album. I was still developing as a songwriter.
So how you pass as from being the freestyling on the sound system, historical sounds and historical MCs, to actually go into the studio and record your first album?
I left school at 16 and I was fortunate to enroll in a college course teaching sound engineering. So from the age of 16 to 18, I was on a college course learning sound engineering, electronics, video, photography and stuff like that. So after college at the age of 18, my lecturer, Alan Caves, who taught me in my second year at college, had put my name forward to UB40 studio because he had worked there previously with UB40, working on tracks like Red Red Wine, Labour of Love 1, and he saw my potential because when it came to Wednesdays at college would be 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock in the evening. That would be studio time, and I never left the studio. We utilised all the time in the studio. My friend Daniel and myself would be in the studio for 12 hours recording mixing, learning, the mixing desk and everything. We never left the studio, where some students would get bored and leave at 12 o'clock in the afternoon or go to the pub to get a drink. We stayed in the studio, and he saw my potential from that early stage to see that I was very serious about learning sound engineering. So he put my name forward to UB40 studio when they were looking for an assistant, and I went there and met the technical engineer, and it just clicked. So straight out of college, I found myself in a world-class studio as an assistant engineer at the age of, say, 18 and a half, just pushing on to 19 years of age. And from there, I began recording and, again, developing as an artist from there. I really kind of took it a bit more serious. The singing side, the technical side kind of came naturally as engineering and mixing, but the singing side and, like I say, the writing and producing became a bit more serious now that I was in a position to work in a studio, an actual studio.
One of the greatest studio, 12-hour shift. He saw the potential in you. Did you see the potential in yourself as a singer back in those days, or what was your expectation by recording those first tunes?
I never really took it that serious, because at the end of the day, when you're at college, you're learning a skill as an engineer. That was really the job or the profession, if that makes sense. So singing would have been secondary, I'd say. Being an engineer would have been the priority, because again, that would have been the thing that made money for me in terms of working. Singing, and in those days, there wasn't really an opportunity to say I want to be a singer, because for one, you couldn't really afford to go into a studio. Studios were very expensive per hour, so I wasn't working, so there wasn't any money to say, okay, I'm going to go into a studio for 6 hours and hire musicians. So the singing thing was really secondary, although I was practicing and singing and stuff. Being an engineer was really the priority, I would say. In the late teens, like from 16 to 19, my engineering would be the main priority.
And nowadays, I know, and as an engineer, I know you're pretty involved with the production of your music. The selection of that first album, as you said, it was just 2 original songs. Were you part of the selection of those tunes? How the selection of those versions came?
Yeah, all of my productions were done by myself. So I was always working by myself, recording. And putting ideas. And what used to happen when I was working in the studio with UB40, I would make cassettes to listen to on my Walkman. I mean, most people probably don't know what a Walkman is these days, but I would make cassettes and listen to music on the way to work and then stuff like that. So I found myself thinking, okay, some of the cassettes that I made, I started recording those particular songs. So songs like Stop This World, Pass It On. Most of the songs that are on my first album were made up from recordings from my dad's record box, just songs that I recorded to listen to, either on my way to work or in the studio while working. I would put a cassette on if I'm servicing the mixing board or the tape machine, or just doing general technical work in the studio, put some music on in the background, and I would listen to my cassettes. And most of the songs that I recorded on my debut album were songs that I just wanted to try and see, just experimenting and seeing if they worked for my voice.
They definitely worked for your voice and for the people's hearts. Do you still own those cassettes?
Yes, somewhere I have. I have boxes of cassettes still. So yeah, most of my cassettes from those days I have stored. Yes.
What else is in your store? Do you still collecting music as a singer?
Sometimes, not as much as before. I mean, late teens until 20s, anywhere or any country I visited, I would always buy music, find a record shop and buy vinyl and CDs. So I have a vast collection of music, but I don't really collect that much these days. No, I have no space.
Well, if your collection is so vast and you collect from everywhere in the world, I'm sure you are familiar with the prices that have give to your own original albums and collections.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays I don't go by some of the eBay prices, like £200 and such for 1 7-inch. No, I never got involved in that kind of collection, but I have a nice collection, I would say, a nice collection of music. Yes,
your own music is the most wanted albums and the most expensive albums right now. What do you think about that?
I think that's crazy. I think that's crazy, but I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say. I mean, if someone really wants to pay an extortionate price for a record, I don't know what to say. Really, I don't. Yeah, but the vinyl in particular is very collectible at this moment, but the prices, I don't think I would pay that kind of a price.
Well, people around the world is waiting to pay those prices for your music whenever they available, because they always sold out in your music from your first to your last albums.
Yes,
the prices keep going up, not only because of the format, but because of the names on it. As you say it, you started working in big studio with UB40, then you continue your works after 2 albums with one of the biggest names in history, Sly Dunbar Robbie.
Yes, Sly Dunbar, Mr. Dunbar, Mr. Shakespeare. Yeah, and to be honest, we spoke about writing. When it comes to songwriting, I think the past 15 years, I have to say, is really because of Sly Dunbar and Robbie Shakespeare. When it comes to writing and creating original songs and original rhythm tracks, the credit has to go to Sly Dunbar and Robbie Shakespeare. They really influenced. Yeah, the late Mr. Shakespeare. Yeah.
How would you describe your works with them, with both of them?
The best of me as an artist. They really inspired and pushed me to bring out my best. When you see their work ethic, the way they work, and the attitudes and the energy they put into the music, you have to really step up and do the same. There's no kind of no holding back or just trying. You really have to give 100%. You have to really follow the same work pattern and work ethic. And I think I did that with Sly and Robbie. They really brought out the best in me in that sense. And like I say, when it comes to writing and creating, I must give all the credit, I would say, because if it wasn't for them, I maybe would have retired.
Well,
after 2004 and 5, I probably would have gone back to production work. So I give thanks that we connected and we worked and we toured so many places around the world and brought that frequency to so many people, and it's there on record for people who know it or people to discover. It's there to hear and listen to and cherish the works that Sly and Robbie put together and we put together. It's something to be very proud of.
Endless big ups to Sly Dunbar and Robbie Shakespeare for inspiring
Most
you and
definitely.
pushing you to keep going in this music career as a singer. How will you describe the planning of a project with them from the moment they say we gotta work to the moment of the release? Who makes which decisions? How's working, let's say, one tune with them?
I would say we work very unconventionally. There's no set way, and I've always worked like that. I think working with in my early days with UB40, you would see a group of musicians that work unconventionally. There's no set way to writing, producing, and finishing a product. It kind of works naturally, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to describe. Yeah, I would just say unconventional. There's no set way of working, and especially with Sly and Robbie, because I work with them the most. Like I say, from 2006 until now, until the departure of Mr. Shakespeare, we've been working, and every project is I can't really say a set way how we work. A song can be started from a drum pattern and my vocal, and then it would be sent to Robbie, and Robbie plays his part, and it would be sent back to Jamaica for Robbie Lynn to play his parts. Or it could be Robbie plays a bass line, I sing a part, and then it's sent to Sly. Sly plays his part. So it's very unconventional. And because I love recording in my studio in England, for example, the last project would be something like that, where we just connected all the dots from Jamaica to Florida to London. So Love Restart was a project like that, where it was some parts in Jamaica, recording in Jamaica, some parts in Florida, and I voice and mix in London, and it all comes together. And during that process, Sly will hear what the progress so far, Robbie will hear the progress so far, and we just keep working and say, yes, sounds wicked, and we just keep going and going until we reach the final line. So I would say just unconventional. We work very unconventionally. It's not a case of all three of us sitting in a studio and recording together, because like I say, I enjoy recording in London in my studio, and I record when it's quiet at night time, and I have my way of working. So, and they respect that, which is great. They allowed me to record and mix and do things my way as well. No one stepped on anyone else's toes.
Unconventional style for an unconventional talent from each of you guys. Love Restart is your last album, come in 2018. You have worked
That's
with
correct, yes.
Taxi from Peking Records, big names all the time. You have your own label too. Tell us about the creation of your own label.
Silent River was started in 2006, straight after the on Bond Street. I was a partner with the label, but things didn't quite work out, and I decided to start all over again, which was with Silent River. And at that time, there was a gentleman by the name of Guillaume Bougard, who is based in France. He's a producer. He owns a label called Taboo One. He's been working with Sly and Robbie for, since the 90s. And once he'd heard the On Bond Street album, he had spoken to Sly and Robbie. Do you know this singer, Bitty McLean? And they were like, of course we know Bitty. Because we had worked together in 1995. Sorry, I forgot to mention. In 1995, I'd recorded an album with Sly and Robbie in Jamaica. It was a tribute album to Otis Redding. But record company politics, the album was never released.
Right.
But we kept contact from that time to the 90s. It was the first time I'd worked with Sly and Robbie, and we'd kind of kept in contact when they come to the UK to play, sometimes with Black Uhuru or with Bunny Ruggs or a Taxi Gang show. I would go and check in and say hi to Sly and Robbie. So we always kept a connection since the 90s in that sense. But the start of Silent River Taxi was really 2006, 2007. And from there, it was a joint venture. We talked together and they said, yeah, fine, let's do it. The first single from that project was The Real Thing, which was backed by another song called All That I Have, which again took me from the rock steady sound to the Jamaican rubber dub sound. And from 2006, there's been no looking back. It's just been from strength to strength with Sly and Robbie. And like I say, touring, we've been to China, Japan, Morocco, Europe, States, Some places we haven't been, but we've played many places, and I give thanks for all those times that we shared on stage together.
You have shared, as you just say, it stage with them all around the world. Mexico is still on the bucket list for you to come.
Yes, yeah. Yes, please. I haven't had any offers as yet, but hopefully one day.
Well, I hope this makes the link stronger to Mexico, and
Yes.
that can happen soon, because believe me, everybody that loves reggae music in Mexico knows the name of Billy McLean and of course Sly Robbie, and it will be a dream come true for every reggae lover in Mexico to see you performing there.
One day.
One day soon, hopefully, to present your upcoming album. I know you're working on an album. You recently released it,
That's
Be
correct,
Accepted, a new single. Tell us about these works on the oven.
It's kind of bittersweet because we'd been working on songs and tracks just before the COVID pandemic started, and then obviously Mr. Shakespeare was sick and we've lost him. So it was kind of finalising songs that we were in progress working on. So like I say, it's kind of a bittersweet kind of feeling, but it's been good to finish in that sense. And the album is to coincide with the Japan tour in October. So it would be released in Japan first, and then we'll do digital release across the world later down in the year. But yeah, it's just good music. Good music. Again, Sly Dunbar, Robbie Shakespeare, Robbie Lynn, Dalton Brown, rest in peace, Dean Fraser, the finest musicians from Jamaica, once again playing a part in the production. And I try my best with the lyrics and melodies.
It's the top-notch names from Jamaica, the top-notch boys from England working in this new album. I want to give you my condolences to you and all Robbie Shakespeare family. I'm sure the grief is still there, and I'm sure as the world, we've been missing him, and it's gonna be wonderful to listen his music
to his works,
through your album.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's hard to say. I don't think you ever get over something like this. I think it's a case of each day becomes a little easier, if that makes sense. So I don't think Mr. Dunbar, myself, there's no kind of getting over losing Robbie. But each day you gain a little strength, and give thanks for all the works, not just the works that he done with me, but the works that he played for many people, Burning Spear, Justin Hines and the Dominoes, Sugar Minot, Black Uhuru. There's so much works that are there from Robbie Shakespeare and Sly Dunbar, the Taxi Gang, the list goes on. So there's so much works to be grateful for that he was a part of. So give thanks for his presence on this planet.
Right. On countless productions and on countless memories that will keep going through years and years and decades in the future of reggae music.
That's right.
I was just mentioning on my last session on the radio show, it will be probably impossible to figure out a tribute. It will be countless tributes to his productions, their productions together, and the contributions
there's too many.
Right?
It's impossible to count the amount of songs they've played, produced, recorded. It's impossible. There's so many that they've probably even forgotten they played. I mean, when we were on tour, when we'd talk together, we'd be listening to music on the tour bus, and I'd play some tracks, and Sly would say, "Bitty, I don't remember playing that." We played some Culture and some various other artists. Like, wow, I don't think I've ever heard, from the day I recorded it, I don't remember hearing that song again. So there's just so many, and because of the fast nature of how the Jamaican music scene was back in the 70s and 80s, it would be track recorded, next track record, next track. So it would be impossible to count the amount of music that they've played on, and sessions. I've witnessed in Jamaica one time we were recording and Toots walked into the studio and the session stopped, and it was like let's build a rhythm for Toots. And within a split second, they were writing
Oh my
a
God.
song for Toots. So Toots recorded 2 rhythm tracks. Thank you, gentlemen, and then walked out. And then we went back to the session. And you can imagine things like that happening throughout the 70s. An artist just walks through the door and it's like, yes, let's lick a rhythm for him, and so forth. So, but like I say, give thanks, and I give all the credit to Sly and Robbie for the past 15, 16 years worth of, especially when it comes to writing music. That really inspired me and brought me into my own lane in terms of developing as a songwriter.
You were just saying that to work with them, it means to step up as a singer. Sounds like pretty serious
Definitely.
business and professional, but I'm sure there is fun parts of being in the studio, fun
Oh,
parts of being on stage.
oh yes. Don't get me wrong, the whole journey is fun, even when we're writing and producing, or if I'm voicing a song here in London and I send a song to Robbie to listen to, I would always say, Mr. Shakespeare, listen to this rough vocal. And he would say, rough? You're crazy. You're crazy. That's not rough. So we would always have fun. Always. It was always fun. But like I say, my worst fear would be to send something to Sly or Robbie and they say, no, Bitty, that's not good enough. And over the years, no, that never happened. They were always receptive and always gave encouragement and stuff with all the works that we did. So yeah, I just have to give thanks for that chapter, or for this chapter in my career. One of the best chapters in the book, I would say.
Either on the studio or on stage, could you share the funniest memory can come to your mind performing with them or recording?
We would always laugh on stage. I don't know if the audience would maybe notice, but we would always laugh on stage, me and Robbie, because sometimes Robbie would sing. We played the Queen Majesty rhythm. I sing a song called Make It With You, and Robbie would come in and sing Queen Majesty, and I'm behind him teasing him, saying but I won't say what I'll say, but we'd be laughing and joking on stage. And Sly always loves to play the real thing on stage. And sometimes we're playing and we don't play it. He'd come off stage and say, Bitty, you didn't play real thing. Why? And then some shows we'd play it and I'd turn around and say, are you happy now, Mr. Dunbar? And he would laugh. So we always have fun. There's always fun in every part. I think that's the best thing. If you love and enjoy what you're doing, there's nothing better in this life. If the job you do is something that you love and enjoy, and music is definitely something that we all enjoy, all of us. Yeah, give thanks.
It is definitely a performance to enjoy whenever you guys got together on stage. I'm lucky to had the opportunity to see you performing with them in San Diego, California, where we met a few years ago. And this actual connection happening now, it started back in that day. But you also have performed with an orchestra recently with the local himself, Mr. David Rodigan. Tell me about your experience with this amazing show that he has put together.
The Outlook Orchestra, yes, I think we performed about 7 or 8 shows. From the conception of the idea of the show, David called me and his manager called me, and they were trying to put together or work out the artists and the songs, the track listing of the show. So we were in discussion about that from the very conception of the show. And the Outlook Orchestra are a band of musicians that have played for various different artists. They've done shows for dance artists, rap, hip-hop and stuff. So as an orchestra, they're very versatile. They've played many different shows for all different kinds of artists. So this would have been the first time they're actually playing a reggae soundtrack. And like I say, from the beginning of the discussion, I was in talks with David Rodigan and his management of the guest artists and the set list of songs that would work for the show, and I feel honoured that they even asked me to be a part of it. It was a really nice time. We played Spain, Rotterdam. We played various festivals in the UK, the Royal Albert Hall, Royal Festival Hall, Kenwood House, which was the last show in London in June. And it's brilliant, absolutely amazing to be on stage with, I think, 36 musicians. with orchestra and full band, and working with Freddie McGregor, Horace Andy as guest artist. Maxi Priest came in on one of the shows. Kiko Bond, Holly Cook, Horseman, Tipper Irie was part of it at the beginning. So working with your peers is always a great feeling to be sharing the stage. And it was excellent, really nice vibe. I'm not too sure if there's going to be any more, but it was a great experience. And David's a good friend of mine. We rap from time to time, and he's an ambassador for the music. So it was great to be part of, definitely.
Big respect to the man David Rodigan for setting up this amazing show. I hope the experience keeps happening so it can get to my eyes soon enough.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any more planned, but fingers crossed. We keep the fingers and toes crossed.
Yes, fingers crossed for that new album, also to keep rotating around the world.
Forward is the title of the album,
and
it's a mix of rubber dub, love songs, conscious. It's everything in that sense. And yeah, what can I say? You know, we'll present it to the people, and if the people gravitate to it, that's more love and more respect. You know, and there's so much more on tape and hard drive for us to work on and finish works that myself, Sly and Robbie were working on. So there's so much things to work on, but Forward has come together really nicely, and I'm looking forward to presenting that to the world, to the reggae world.
Here we have my people, Billy McLean, talking basically exclusive about his next release, Forward, the album. We hear about the styles on it. Will be pressings in any format of this new album?
CD and digital. It's so difficult to get vinyl here in Europe and UK.
The high demand.
And we have a time of 9 months to receive vinyl. So
right.
Vinyl is at the bottom of the list right now because of the wait. The demand is just ridiculous. You know, it's 6 to 9 months. So if I order vinyl now, I don't think I would receive finished copies until 2023 April or May. Possibly I might get finished products. So I don't know when the vinyl, if or when vinyl will be done. But there will be digital release and CDs available. Yeah.
We'll be patiently waiting for a copy in CD, in digital in the meantime. And to see you, I wish you all the best, all the success in Japan and wherever you go presenting this album. We're gonna be waiting, as I tell you.
Thank you, Miss
Lily.
That's
be
excellent.
accepted, because you are pretty accepted in the Mundo Reggae, in the Mundo Reggae show and business. So going personal, Mr. Billy McLean, if you will have to choose, it will be tape, CD, or vinyl.
Oh my goodness. I would say vinyl, but I still have a love for cassette tape. That's my generation, cassettes. I remember the Walkmans and stuff like that, but I would say vinyl. Yeah, I do love vinyl, especially the old 7 inches, the old pressings. So I would say vinyl. Yeah.
Then
definitely.
You would choose between 7, 10, or 12?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I would say probably 10, because it goes back to those 78s that my dad owned very early when I was growing up. I remember the 78 records and the 10 inches, and I still have a few of those from my dad's collection. I really keep them. I cherish those. So I would say the 10-inch 78s are the most special to me. Yeah.
Nice. If you will have to rescue one tape, one CD, and one vinyl from your collection, what the titles will be?
Wow. Oh my goodness. If it was vinyl, I would say Nat King Cole is an artist that I really love. My dad used to play him when we were little. So his sound and his vibration will always stick in my memory. So Nat King Cole would be the vinyl that I would say. Definitely anything from Nat King Cole. He's definitely the king for us as vocalist and singer. Cassette, I would say Sly and Robbie. Anything from Sly and Robbie. And CD, I would say anything from Treasure Isle, Duke Reid's Treasure Isle, which is some of the first CDs I began collecting when I started working as a sound engineer. At that time, most people didn't want CDs. Most DJs and collectors only wanted vinyl. But in the early 90s, so much early Jamaican ska rocksteady that was being released on CD, and I used to collect all of these CDs. So Duke Reid, anything from Duke Reid, Treasure Isle on CD.
All right. What about stage or studio?
Oh my goodness. Stage, every show is important. It doesn't matter how big or how small, and I've performed on big stages and I've performed on small stages, small like Jazz Cafe, or I've performed with UB40 in front of 80,000 people. So it doesn't matter the size or the stage. No, every show is as important as the last. That's what I would say about stage.
We hear your memories from Roy Alton Ellis, Daryl Wilson. That is all male singers and musicians. What about the female influence in your collection and in your career too?
Sonia Pottinger.
Right.
A lot of her work produced the Melodians, Ken Booth, Marcy Griffiths, Judy Mowat, Cynthia Slosh. Oh, the list goes on. I don't mean to be rude and just mention the male singers, but there's so many females. But as producer, and I think she was probably the only producer, Sonia Pottinger, out of Jamaica. But her impact in the music and the sound, I mean, even albums like Culture, Harder Than the Rest, and Combolo were produced by Sonia Pottinger. So she played her part in the music from the late rocksteady right up until the cultural 70s. Marcy Griffiths' Naturally album, Step In, Marcy Griffiths again, is produced by Sonia Pottinger. So she's a very important part of the makeup and the history of Jamaican music, most definitely. JC Lodge, the list goes on. The list goes on. So yeah, most definitely respect to the female producer and the female artists. Definitely. That goes without saying.
Right. For all men and women from the world doing reggae music, thank you, Mr. Billy McLean, for being part of that amazing evolution of reggae music. You have witnessed from the 70s to the 80s, 90s, 2000, and keep going. What would you say about the actual movement of reggae in England, Jamaica, and the world?
I would say right now I'm out of sync with who's the latest artist or what's the current trend, because I always go back to my old school and my old school influences. So I'm kind of that way inclined. I still listen to people like Curtis Mayfield. He's a big influence on me as a writer. I listen to people like Ken Booth, Daddy Uroy. I mean, Daddy Uroy is a very close friend as well. So I'm very old school in my approach. When I'm recording and writing, I tend just to really focus on what I'm working on, so I don't really look for outside influences. I'm the worst critic, and I don't believe at my age of 50, 51, I should be criticising young musicians or young singer-songwriters. I think it's a free world, and artists need to make mistakes, if that makes sense, learn your craft, and should be allowed to make mistakes without people looking over your shoulder saying what you're doing isn't good enough. I don't think that's fair. Nobody did that to me as a young singer from the age of 10 until I recorded my first album at 21. I used to get a bit of criticism from musicians around me, but in general it was mainly encouragement. And I think when you encourage anyone, I don't think it matters the occupation. I think when you encourage someone, it brings out the best in that person. So I'm one of those people. I'm not going to criticize anyone's songwriting abilities or musical abilities. I think it's there for the audience to decide if they love it or they don't. It's not for me as an artist or a producer to critique anybody else's work.
Not as a critic, but as a encouragement and probably inspiration or advice to new musicians.
I would say the blueprint is there. If you go back in the history of the music, you will discover people like Lynn Tate, Tommy McCook, Roland Alfonso, Jackie Mitu. And if you listen to the works of the early musicians, because I always put musicians first before the artists, if you listen to the works of the musicians, you should be inspired to create and apply that work ethic to what you do. So I think the blueprint is there where Jamaican music is concerned. There's so many great musicians who created signature sounds that we can go back, which is something I do. I go back and I listen to the origins of the music from ska, rocksteady to reggae, and I always feel inspired to go back in the studio and create and write music. So that's what I would say to any young aspiring singer, songwriter or musician. Go back in the history, listen and learn, and you should be inspired to create and bring something to the table of music.
Go back and study and go forward and study
and
forward
that's
album.
right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Go back, because there's always something inspiring, and there's always something new to learn. Nobody knows everything, and there's always something to learn from music. Yeah, there's always something new to discover. We might know the famous producers like Studio One, Cox and Dodd, and Treasure Isle, Duke Reid, but there's lots of independent producers, Matador, Phil Pratt. The list goes on. Bunny Lee. There's so many different producers and musicians who created a signature sound within the music. So there's so much to inspire people from if you can go back and listen and bring that up to date with what you do, which is what works for me. I go back and I listen and study the music and try and apply to what I do now today.
And we can totally enjoy the blueprints in your music too, from each release, each single, and I'm sure the blueprints will still be there in Forward, your new album.
I think so, yes.
Is there an exact
definitely.
date to release in October the album that we can schedule our calendars and mark an alarm?
October the 1st is the physical in Japan, and we haven't set a digital release date as well. That should be in November, but I'm not going to give you an exact date today. I'm sorry about that, Miss Lulu, but there won't be an exact date. But I will send you a few tracks from the new album if that's okay.
That sounds way more than okay.
I will do that now. As we finish, I will do that, and I will keep you posted with all release dates and stuff like that.
All right, we're gonna keep the link. We're gonna keep the touch with Billy McLean to expect the whole tracks of this album. As on the Mundo Reggae show, we always play all styles and formats of reggae music. There is one format that we love the most, and that is exclusives on the Mundo Reggae.
Oh, excellent! I will make sure you get some exclusives, Miss Lulu, most definitely.
As part of this exclusive from Forward, can you tell us the amount of tracks in this album?
There should be 13 tracks on the album. The Japan release is slightly shorter. We've done 10 tracks for Japan, but the digital release should be 13 tracks. Yes, there'll be a few more tracks on the digital release. Yeah.
Awesome. Reggae lovers from around the world, wait patiently for October, November for this new release. Keep in touch with your Mundo Reggae show to hear some more tracks besides
to hear some
the
exclusive.
Accepted.
Yeah. Brilliant, excellent, and thank you for the support over the 15 years. Happy anniversary, and I wish you many more years of playing and showcasing great music.
Thank you, Sir Billy McLean. As a reggae lover, as a fan of your music, as a journalist, is
I
a
love that,
huge
sir.
pleasure.
You have to say that, sir, a bit louder.
Sir Billy McLean.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Miss Lulu.
It's a
Enough
huge
respect.
honor to hear the history from the man himself, Sir Billy McLean, from England to the world. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your music, and thank you so much for sharing your history and your talent with all of us.
Thank you so much. Okay, enough respect.
Boom!
As far as I can see, under John and sun,
Fresh and new.
Música Reggae. The war will never cease until until thy kingdom come.
Fresh and new.
Música Reggae. Did you hear the news? How they sacrifice the youths. What they speak is what they do. While seeing blind is what you choose.
Fresh and new.
Música Reggae. As far as I can see, under Jah moon and sun, we will never be free until thy kingdom come. Música Reggae.